Thriller by Rory Bourke. Chapter 1. The Job. Rain drummed on the flat tin roof like a prisoner banging to get out. The flickering strip light above cast the Catford office in jaundiced grey. Wallpaper peeled like old scabs. The radiator clanked. Something small and alive scratched behind the skirting board, then went still, like it knew who sat in the room. Gary Saint, the saint to those who mattered, was open for business. He sat behind a battered desk, still bearing scorch marks from a night he didn't like to talk about. A half-finished glass of Johnny Walker sat beside an overflowing ashtray. He flicked his gold DuPont lighter, lit a cigarette with the casual grace of a man who'd once lit fuses in another life, and looked up. The door creaked open. Sidney Blake stepped in, damp trench coat flapping, the look of a man who wanted to sit down but wasn't sure if he was staying long. The carpet squelched under his brogues. Saint didn't rise, didn't smile, just blew a slow ribbon of smoke toward the stained ceiling. "You're late," he said. Sidney shrugged off his coat and dropped it on a rusted filing cabinet that had long since given up on opening. "I've got something," he said. "Something big." Gary flicked ash into the tray, eyes cold. "Unreadable. You always say that. Half the time it's bullshit, the other half it's dangerous." Sidney grinned. "This one's both," he said. Saint leaned forward. The smoke curled between them like a question waiting to be answered. "Okay." "Show me what you got." Sidney reached into his coat, slow, deliberate, and laid a thick brown envelope on the desk. No markings, just weight. Saint looked at it like a snake charmer watching a cobra. "Names? 4. You want them scared?" "No," Sidney said. "I want them gone." "Who wants them gone?" Saint asked, eyes narrowed. "It ain't you." He jabbed a finger at Blake. "Who you working for this time? Special branch? River House?" Silence, just the tick of a crooked wall clock and the hum of something electrical waiting to die. Saint leaned back, took a long drag and stared through the smoke. His mind wandered. Suddenly he was no longer in the Catford office. He was back in Rome, back with Gina. For a moment she whispered across his mind. Blonde hair in moonlight, heels on Italian cobblestone, a scent that still haunted his dreams. He crushed the thought like his cigarette. "All right," he said. "Tell me who they are." Sidney watched as Saint finally reached for the envelope. No rush, just that same steady precision, like the man had all the time in the world, or none at all. The flap opened with a whisper. Inside, 3 black and white photographs, glossy prints, 8 by 10, faces, men. Saint laid them out slowly in front of him on the desk, placing each one carefully, deliberately, like playing cards in a game only he could understand. He didn't ask who took them. He knew Sidney never got his hands dirty, not directly. Saint studied the photos one by one, like a jewellery expert checking precious stones for flaws. The first, a man in a Savile Row suit stepping into a Bentley outside the Royal Courts of Justice, slick back hair, smiling, confident. "Andrew Black," Sidney said. "King's Counsel, Special Advisor to the Home Office. That's his driver. Used to be Met, now he's private security." Saint noted the supercilious smile on Black's face, and his lips curled with disgust. These men, he thought, deserved a special place in hell, those who treated the lives of their clients like a game to be laughed about over scotch with their colleagues, win or lose. It was a different universe to the one Gary Saint had grown up in, a world where every meal, every street fight was hard won. No silk ties, no second chances. Saint hated men like Andrew Black. He would enjoy killing him. Next photo, a man on a yacht in Cannes, shirtless, silver chain, drink in hand, laughing, two tans, too rich. Carl Deacon, explains Sydney, ran covert ops in the Gulf, now owns a PMC out of Dubai, sends fruit baskets to MI6, still active? Saint asked, tapping the photo. Depends what you mean by active. He's black bag level, government deniable. Third photo, a man inside a gentleman's club in Mayfair, blurry but clear enough, shaking hands with someone just out of frame. Mean eyes. Richard Hemsley, Sydney said. Tory MP, backbencher, but he's got real dirt on people higher up. He's the link. Saint studied him a long moment. And the fourth? Sydney hesitated, then handed over the final image. Saint's cigarette paused halfway to his lips. Same blonde hair, same ice-cold elegance. The photo caught her walking out of the American embassy, head high, eyes shaded, stiletto heels gleaming. She looked like someone who could walk through fire and leave the fire apologising. I thought she was dead, Saint murmured. So did a lot of people. What's she doing with them? Sydney didn't answer right away. She's the go-between, the spider at the centre of the web. Saint leaned back, jaw tight. You said this was a job. What kind of job? Sydney's voice dropped low. We need you to find out what they're planning and stop it, whatever it is. Saint exhaled. Smoke twisted like a prophecy in the air between them, and somewhere in the back of his mind the fire roared. He took a cigarette and flicked the DuPont again, its flame dancing like a devil's grin in the dim light. He loved the sound of it as much as the weight of it in his hand. That satisfying clunk when it closed. There was something permanent about it. A link to the past, to the truth, however agonising that truth might have been. He'd bought it in Rome 10 years ago. The same week everything fell apart. It was heavy, dependable. Gold, yes, but built like a tank. French, like something de Gaulle might have used before the war went cold. He remembered the accident, could not remember it. Part of the PTSD, he reflected bitterly. No one was above it. They told him that on his first day at Hereford. The brass plaque at the airfield still called it a training exercise. But Saint remembered the truth. The fire, the twisted wreckage, the screams swallowed by the roar of the Mediterranean wind. His younger brother Danny burned alive in the cockpit they never should have been flying. Saint had made it out, barely. Rome hadn't offered comfort, but it had offered Gina. Blonde hair that shimmered like danger, legs that promised heaven and delivered hell. She wore stilettos like a soldier wore medals and carried herself in Prada like it was body armour. Gina could smile while she robbed you blind and make you thank her for the privilege. She was steel and silk, and the only woman who had ever truly broken his heart. He hadn't seen her since that last night in Trastevere, when she whispered his name like a curse and vanished before dawn. He looked for her for a while, then he stopped. But he never really forgot. Not Gina, not Rome, and not the fire. The door clicked shut behind Sydney. No handshake, no farewell, just the scrape of footsteps and the creak of the street door as it swung into South London rain. Saint sat still. The photos lay on the desk like pages from a book he never wanted to reopen. But it was the fourth photo that pinned him down. Gina. 10 years and she looked the same. Maybe colder, maybe not. The moment he saw her, the years fell away. Rome came rushing back, terraces at dusk, the smell of jet fuel and jasmine, the feeling of standing on the edge of something beautiful and doomed. She left without a word. No note, no trace. 1 minute she was lying beside him, hair like gold across his chest, breath soft with sleep. The next, gone. And now she was back, mixed up in something high level, dangerous, possibly lethal. Saint stood, walked to the window. Catford blurred behind the fogged up glass, neon in puddles, headlights cutting the drizzle. Somewhere a police siren wailed, then vanished into the night. He didn't want the job, not really, but he'd take it, because Andrew Black, Carl Deacon, and Richard Bloody Hemsley were the kind of men who thought their sins would stay buried, and because the only way to understand why Gina was walking through fire again was to follow the smoke. He stubbed out the cigarette, grabbed the envelope, and opened the bottom drawer of the desk. Inside, a Walther PPK wrapped in oilcloth, a passport, a map of the southeast, a rusted pair of aviators, and a key to the Cessna parked quietly at Biggin Hill. Saint ran a hand through his greying hair, then lit another cigarette. The Saint, he muttered to no one, is back in the sky. Chapter 2, Preparations. By midday the next day, the sky over South London was a dull bruise, grey, sullen, and untrustworthy. Gary Saint's Jaguar X-car glided through the back streets of Lewisham like a cat with its claws retracted. The blacked-out windows and low growl of the engine turned heads, but no one held the stare, not here. He pulled up outside an anonymous locksmith shop off Deptford High Street. The faded sign read, Owen's Security Services, but it hadn't made a real key since the 1970s. Inside, the bell jingled, the scent of oil and dust, shells of padlocks that didn't lock anything. A pale man appeared behind the counter, bald, pockmarked, yellowing fingernails. Well, he wheezed. If it ain't the winged devil himself. I heard whispers you were dead. I was, replied Saint, and added, then I got bored. Owen grunted and motioned to the back. No cameras, just old boxes, a flickering desk lamp, and the clink of a spoon in a cracked teacup. Saint handed over a sealed envelope. Name's Marco Luca Ferrani. Italian-English, freelance security, cover story, golf contracts and maritime logistics. Based out of Malta. Owen peeled it open, leafed through the notes and nodded. Same face, different mask. I'll have it by morning. You're lucky you pay in advance. Next stop, the Armourer. Saint drove east toward the rural edge of Kent, where the streets gave way to trees and the air stopped smelling like brake fluid and regret. A derelict farm hunched behind rusted gates, barbed wire curling like dead ivy. The crows on the roof didn't scatter. They knew better. He knocked once, twice, then 3 sharp raps. The door creaked open. Duffy stood there, 6'4", ex-Royal Marines, beard like a bear that gave up halfway through a boxing match. He looked like a man who knew exactly what a human body sounded like when it broke. Jesus, he muttered. The dead do walk, Saint smirked. Still hoarding toy stuff? I hoard grief, gear and Guinness. What's the job? Foreign, urgent and loud. Duffy cracked a grin. Come in then, Saint. I'll show you the good cupboard. They stepped into a side room, concrete floor, steel walls, climate controlled. The room hummed with quiet menace, weapons stacked like firewood, ammo sealed in vacuum packs. Shelves of gear marked with countries, calibers and body counts. Saint scanned the stash like a man browsing old friends, then quietly, need more than the usual. This one's going deep. How deep? Rome, Black Ops, bad memories, no second chances. Duffy nodded once, then started opening crates. Walther PDP compact, custom suppressor, 5 full mag subsonic rounds, ideal for urban work, fast draw, quiet kill, 3 mags hollow points, because sometimes you need loud reassurance. In Spicer MPX machine pistol, foldaway stock, 2 double mags tape jungle style, compact close quarter carnage, Nester AUG rifle, military optic, laser zeroed. This sight calibrated? At 300 metres it'll part a man's hair, said Duffy. And 2 M67 fragmentation grenades. Saint turned one over in his palm. Cool, heavy. These look nice, good choice, Duffy grinned. Room clearers. Then came the extras. And accuracy, international, Axe MC sniper rifle, modular chassis, 3 and 38 Lapua Magnum, adjustable cheek rest, folding stock, Night Force ATACR, 5-25 times 56 scope mounted, suppressor and bipod included. This isn't for warning shots, Saint muttered. That one whispers death at a kilometre, encrypted comm set, bone conduction earpiece, throat mic, dual channel, encrypted with auto scramble. Uplink range, citywide, Russian firmware, falls off the grid like a priest on payday. Some Kevlar vest class 4, ceramic plates, rated for 7.62 millimeters, worn thin at the edges. Duffy handed it over, still fits, took a round in Baghdad and kept ticking. Saint held it up, smells like regret. That's my aftershave. Spyderco blade, black finish, half serrated. And for the quiet jobs. Encrypted burner phone, unfactory sealed, anonymous firmware, untraceable SIMs, in carbon fibre flight case, unshockproof, padded, dual lock, looked like it belonged in the hands of a cellist with PTSD. Saint zipped the case shut, no serials, no shine, no trail. Saint handed over a roll of notes thick enough to win a by-election. No names. What names? Duffy said, already counting. Walked back out into the cold. Case in. Rome wouldn't know what hit it, but Nero would. Johnny Nero. Saint's old enemy. His fiddling days were numbered. Saint allowed himself the ghost of a smile as he took a cigarette from the Dunhill case, struck flame with the DuPont and exhaled slowly like a man about to burn a city down. Final stop, home. The sun was low as Saint turned off the main road. Tall pines flanked the drive like sentries. The iron gates read the Jack's plates and opened without a word. His house sat on 5 acres outside Westerham. Modern lines in old stone, clean glass. No neighbours for a mile. A fortress disguised as a retreat. Inside, marble floors, low light, a glass wall overlooking the woods. Not showy, just quiet. He poured a Talisker, sat in the leather armchair by the fire. No TV, no music. Just the crackle of wood and the weight of what was coming. On the side table, the only photo in the house, 2 young men in flight suits, grinning on a sun-bleached airstrip. Cyprus. Danny had that grin, that stupid, beautiful grin. Gary touched the glass. "She's back, mate," he said softly. Outside the wind stirred, and somewhere far off, the sky whispered of old enemies and unsettled debts. Chapter 3. The Name. The locksmith's bell jangled again, though this time the rain was falling harder, and the shadows outside seemed thicker. Gary Saint stepped into the narrow shop in Lewisham, with the collar of his black coat turned high against the storm. He carried nothing, said nothing. Owen didn't bother with greetings. He simply nodded once and led him into the back. The workroom was quiet now. The only sound was the ticking of a dented wall clock and the soft hum of a fan heater in the corner. From under the desk, Owen retrieved a manila envelope. He laid it on the table like a priest presenting a relic. "No prints, no digital record, no paper trail," he said. "You didn't come here. I didn't see you. You weren't born." Saint opened it slowly. Inside was a UK passport, dark blue, post-Brexit issue, thick with false truth. He flipped to the ID page. Gary Saint flipped open the forged passport and stared at the name, Marco Luca Ferrani. It wasn't his first alias, but it might be his cleanest. The photo showed a man who could pass for Southern Italian or North African. Dark eyes, olive skin, subtle crow's feet. A fluent speaker of English, Italian, Maltese, French, Spanish, and when needed, Russian. He'd earned those tongues the hard way too, in cockpit briefings, field hospitals, and backroom deals that never made the news. He turned to Owen. "Marco Luca Ferrani, you just made me a Vatican ghost." Owen smirked. "It fits. You've got that spaghetti noir thing going for you." Saint chuckled dryly. "You should try stand-up. You'll be standing in front of a judge soon enough." The folder also contained a Maltese pilot's license issued in his new name, a Spanish firearms permit for private contractors, a Gibraltar offshore debit card tied to an account holding 400,000 euros already laundered, and a folded letter of engagement from a fake Dubai-based firm, Orion Risk Logistics. Saint tucked it all away, zipped up his flight bag and offered Owen a final nod. "I was never here," he said. "Where exactly?" The photograph was perfect. Hair shorter, clean shaven, subtle age blur. The man in the photo looked like someone you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting exactly the way Saint liked it. He thumbed the laminate and checked for the microprint watermark. It was all there. Even the embedded RFID chip had been wiped and rewritten. Owen didn't do half measures. Saint grunted. "Travel advisory? Clean," Owen said. "No red flags. Cleared for UK, EU, North Africa and the Emirates. The usual fallback ID in Dubai. Nothing links back." Gary nodded, folding the passport carefully and tucking it into the interior pocket of his jacket. "And the backup ID?" Owen passed him a slim card wallet. Inside, a UAE residency permit, an offshore banking access card, Gibraltar International, and a forged pilot certification under the same alias. "You're a freelance air logistics specialist. Call sign Eagle 9. Private contractor out of Malta. You own one Cessna and fly hot cargo for rich men with problems." Gary smirked. "You've been reading my diary." Owen looked at him, serious now. "This job, is it personal?" Saint paused. Then quietly, "Always is. Chapter 4, wheels up." Biggin Hill slept beneath a low, brooding sky. The old RAF base, now a playground for discreet billionaires and men like Saint, buzzed quietly with midnight routine. A storm hovered somewhere over the channel, distant lightning flashing like artillery on the horizon. Gary Saint, Marco Luca Ferrani now, at least on paper, moved like a man with purpose and clearance. The tower had already filed his flight plan Malta via Kane for fuel. Business class shadows, no questions asked. His Cessna 414 Chancellor waited under the floodlights, twin props still and silent, like fangs before the bite. The fuselage gleamed, sleek, custom trimmed, no visible ID codes except the tail number 9HFR9. Maltese registered, just like the man who owned it. He stowed the flight case behind the pilot's seat. Smooth movements, no wasted energy. Checked the Walther, slotted it into the side compartment near the throttle. The old ritual done 100 times, never careless, just in case. On the dash sat a slim leather folder. Inside, weather reports, tower codes, and a small glossy photograph. Gina. Not the embassy shot this time, this was the old one. Rome, Trastevere, a cafe table, her head turned slightly in the light, a glass of red in her hand, laughing. That kind of laugh that made a man want to surrender everything. Gary looked at it for a long time. Then he slid it into the side pocket with the rest of his secrets. He fired the engines. Twin hums broke the silence, rising to a confident roar. The propellers sliced the mist as the nav lights blinked into life. Green and red, port and starboard, the quiet ritual of flight. The radio crackled. Echo 9 cleared runway 21. Weather minimal, wind south-southeast. Godspeed, Mr. Ferrani. Copy, Gary said. Cleared runway 21. Lifting off, he eased the throttle forward. The Cessna surged ahead, the mist parting like curtains around a stage. The runway lights streaked past in blinks, and then, with a single breath and a tilt of the yoke, wheels up. London fell away beneath him, lost in fog and memory. The night opened wide and black ahead, Europe waiting. As the aircraft climbed through the first layer of clouds, Gary muttered to himself, almost without thinking, time to find out what Gina's playing at. And with that, the sky swallowed him whole. Chapter 5, Rome. The sun was just starting to bleed into the sky as the Cessna touched down at Ciampino, Rome's quieter, more discreet airfield. No paparazzi, no customs delays. Just a nod from a man who knew how to keep his mouth shut, and a hangar paid for a year in advance. The wheels kissed the tarmac like a confession whispered at dawn, soft, inevitable, full of unspoken weight. The Cessna's frame shuddered slightly, tires hissing against the runway as if reluctant to wake the dead. Saint cut the engines. Silence. The kind that only comes after movement. He sat for a moment, staring through the windshield at the soft blue glow of morning. His jaw was tight, his eyes unreadable. Rome, not just a destination, not just coordinates on a flight plan. This was the eternal city, the place where history didn't sleep. It lingered, thick as incense and twice as hard to shake. This place, he said to no one in particular. There was something about this place, the light, the heat, the smell, the atmosphere. Nowhere in the world was like it. Nothing to do with the people. Truth be told, he didn't even like the Italians much. Bunch of arrogant tossers, most of them. But it was the place. It was like nowhere else on earth. It had been the same since he'd stepped off the plane here for the first time, aged 11. He'd come here with his mum and dad, different time. Same feeling, weird. Saint's hand rested lightly on the throttle as he guided the aircraft toward the private hangar, a cigarette smouldering between his lips, untouched. His eyes scanned the horizon, not for threats, not yet, but for memory. That cruel bastard memory. It was everywhere here, in the ochre light, in the scent of pine and fuel, in the curve of the hills behind the city where empires once rose and men like him were either broken or reborn. He cut the engines. Silence rushed in. For a long moment he didn't move. The cockpit felt like a tomb, not unpleasant, just honest. This place holds ghosts, he thought, and not all of them wear heels. He unclipped his harness and stepped out onto the tarmac. Early morning Rome greeted him with a breeze warm enough to make you forget the calendar. Cicadas already singing. The sky above the Appian Hills was streaked with lavender and peach, like God had been drinking again. Saint inhaled deeply. Jet fuel, rosemary, espresso drifting from a nearby cafe. The smell of Rome. He hadn't wanted to come back. Not really, but it was always going to happen. One way or another, this city calls its sons home, especially the ones who swore they'd never return. A rival, a black Maserati Levante, idled by the hangar, discreet and predatory. The driver stepped out, tall Roman, eyes like carved obsidian behind mirrored glasses. Not a word, just a respectful nod and an open rear door. Saint slid in. The leather was warm from the sun. As they pulled away, he glanced once, just once, at the city rising beyond the tarmac. Rome, the domes and ruins, the crumbling palazzi, the laundry lines hanging like tired flags across alleyways. Everything worn, weathered, eternal, just like the men who survive it. And he had survived it, barely. Hotel Eden. The car climbed the winding road toward the Aventine, past Trastevere, past the churches he used to light candles in, long before he lost faith. The Maserati pulled up to the Hotel Eden, discreet as ever. Saints on the lintels, sinners at the bar. His suite was waiting, 5th floor corner, view of the Vatican Dome through a filter of haze and redemption. Inside, marble, silk, silence. He opened his bag, blade, burner, Walther, a spare shirt. He moved with the calm of a man who'd done this 100 times and survived maybe half. Then he turned, and there, taped to the inside of the wardrobe door, was a single white card. Gina's handwriting, slanted, elegant, deadly. Some ghosts don't forgive, some do worse. G. He read it once, then again. Then he burned it in a marble ashtray and watched the ashes scatter like memories on the wind.